I am here with Ben Thomas of Venom Prison. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, as well as listeners of the show.
Awesome.
So let's go ahead and start it at the beginning here. What got you into the metal scene?
Well, I've always been around the musical. My family's always been pretty musical. I think metal was kind of at the last of everything for me, really. Like growing up, I've always been kind of fascinated by music. My dad would always play the piano. He'd always play his keyboards, and just kind of used to being around instruments. It would just be pretty normal. It was kind of strange to me if someone didn't play an instrument, if you know what I mean. Like just kind of used to it being around. So I guess I kind of grew up at school. I was forced to play piano. Like I remember dreading having piano lessons, being like, "Oh, I really don't want to do this." But I'm really grateful actually that my parents kind of pushed me through and made me have piano lessons because it kind of teaches you the basics of everything. So kind of started out on piano, did a bit of clarinet back in school days. That was pretty wild. I remember someone coming into like a school assembly and playing some pretty wild jazz on clarinet and thinking, yeah, I think I could do that maybe. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, pretty different. And then, like, my dad always had an acoustic guitar lying around. I gave that a go. And at school, everyone was into punk rock at that point. And, like, one of my best friends at school, he was a drummer. And there was another guy who played guitar, and we needed a bassist to make the band complete. So I was like, oh, I'll get a bass. So I got a bass. I asked around, picked up a bass, and pretty soon I got bored of playing bass, switched to six strings, and that was kind of that. Played in a few sort of punk and hardcore bands, and it was kind of weird. Like I kind of discovered metal, but I was definitely sort of more of a sort of punk guy, I suppose, sort of starting into heavy music, and there wasn't
Right.
much of a music scene by me either. Like I kind of grew up in sort of a small sort of Somerset town, and it was actually the smallest city in England, and it was known for cathedral music, and I was a choral singer, funnily enough.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Kind of ditch the religious aspect, but if you kind of listen to choral music, I mean the harmonies, the transitions, everything. Um, you can kind of apply that to whatever you're writing for. So it was kind of this weird hybrid of being surrounded by classical and choral music, but also having friends that were kind of branching out into other stuff too. So I mean, I think I was kind of lucky to be around so much kind of different music. So yeah, metal was kind of sort of the last thing I discovered, if I'm being honest. Yeah. It's like it's not your typical way. I mean, I suppose I'd like to say, yeah, I've discovered loads of sick bands near me, but it really wasn't that way. I kind of had to dig it out myself.
Well, and it all sounds like a perfect making for a nicely blended eclectic style. I'll get into that a little bit with Venom Prison. What kind of were your favorite bands growing up?
I think the first band that kind of really made me think this is what I want to do was AFI, Fire Inside. Like for me, like punk was always cool, but I didn't really gel with the sort of just happy major chords, just the topics. It just wasn't really doing much for me. But sort of the music and the energy, that was all cool. And then sort of discovering AFI kind of around the Black Sails and Art of Drowning era, just seeing the aesthetic of the band, sort of the dark sort of overtones of the band. That was kind of for me, that was really sort of like, damn. I remember hearing Days of the Phoenix or seeing that music video, and
Mm.
pretty much after seeing Days of the Phoenix, that's kind of I think that was the song that changed everything for me. That was like that fucked it for me. That was like, yeah, not gonna get a regular job. That I'm just gonna go on tour, play shows. That's it. But kind of sort of progressing on from that, I've sort of kind of got into. I remember hearing really early sort of metal bands, but it didn't really sort of connect with me until like I started going to shows. Like I said, there was no real scene by me, so I'd have to travel pretty far. Like I remember the nearest good music scene. I mean, I was about an hour away from Bristol before I moved there, and I think I moved out at 18. Started going to shows kind of around there. There was some really cool sort of good local bands. There was Burning Skies, who were I don't know if you've heard of them. Have they kind of are they sort of known in America? I don't know.
I can't say I'm familiar with them, but I mean, it's something to check out though.
Okay, but they were kind of like on the sort of European scene. They were on Life Force Records, and they did a bunch of tours with Dying Fetus, Origin back in the day, sort of around the sort of
Ah, okay.
early sort of thousands. So they were cool, and really the sort of most local sort of strong music scene to me was like the South Wales scene, sort of like Newport and Cardiff, and that's kind of how I sort of came to meet Ash from Venom Prison. And it was weird because I'm a little bit older than him. I played in a metal band called Dignity Dies First, and I think he used to come to like some of the early shows. So he'd be like sort of spin kicking in the pit, and yeah, I just had no idea I had a future with that guy. Um, but yeah, it's like kind of met guys around that scene. It was a really good, strong music scene, a whole bunch of great local bands, good hardcore bands, and just kind of got to know people there. Played in a couple of hardcore bands around Bristol, and yeah, just kind of every sort of major tour that sort of Avocado or Mad would put through, there'd either be a Bristol date or a Newport date or a Cardiff date. So it's kind of around that sort of 2004, 5, 6, sort of bleeding up to sort of the mid 2010s and 15s. There was just so much music going on around that scene. I think that's kind of pretty much shaped kind of the music I listen to now. Yeah.
So how exactly did you meet up with Ash Gray and Larissa Stupor? I assume it was around 2015.
Yeah, so I knew Larissa because her old hardcore band had done, I'd say a tour, but it was more of like a, a weekender with my old band. So we both had sort of hardcore bands sort of on the same page, sort of politically. So they came over from Germany and we did sort of like a short tour. And I think like she sent me a message and she said her bass player had got really sick and had asked my number so I could get some medication for her bass player because we were on the way. I think like he did something dumb, like tried to like chin a drink through a dirty sock or something ridiculous like that, and ended up getting really sick before the show. Um, so yeah, like so I guess she had my number from that and sort of organizing a tour, and then like we didn't speak for a while. Wolf Down broke up, and my hardcore band broke up, and then I remember getting a text from her saying, "Are you interested in doing a band?" And at that point, I'd kind of had enough. Like I'd sort of pretty jaded with the hardcore scene, and sort of my
Right.
my band at the time kind of ended on a bit of a bum note. But I mean, it had always been in the back of my mind. I should probably do something because I think anyone who's sort of creatively minded, they say they could walk away from it, but I don't
They
think they really.
can't.
No, they can't do it. I don't know if you're that way too, but I remember seeing the text and I was like, oh, maybe send me a demo. She sent me like a Dropbox, and that would have been the demo. I don't think it's online anymore. I think we took it off since we did that re-release. But sent me the demo, and I was like, yeah, I can do that. Dug out my guitar. I had to buy thicker strings because it was tuned so low comparison to the band I was playing and singing. Christ, how's this gonna work? And yeah, ended up taking my pedal board, my guitar, and amp up to Newport. Met Ash, and it's like I kind of knew him, sort of. Like we'd never been sort of formally introduced, but like his old band had played with my band, and there'd be tons of crossovers. Um, and yeah, just kind of jammed from there, really.
Yeah, me as far as a musician goes and being able to walk away, like me, I used to do industrial music, I guess you could say, or like industrial metal, but it was like
What's
the
that?
whole one man band thing. And dude, after a while, and also that just the industrial scene, there's people there are so pretentious that eventually I was just like, okay, I'm first off, I'm not even doing real music as far as me myself personally was concerned. So I just walked away from it, and it's just with having a wife and a family, I don't have time really to pick up instruments or try to learn anything like that.
It's
Yeah,
tough, isn't it, finding a balance? Because like I think when the music slowed down, I thought at that point, oh yeah, I need to concentrate on making money, get a career going. But yeah, it's so hard to walk away from properly.
as far as the demo, are you talking about Defy the Tyrant?
Yeah, yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I use YouTube Music, and it was actually up there. I was listening to it when I was walking my dogs late last night. So
I'll say
basically, your first EP with them was the Primal Chaos. What was that like?
that was cool because I had nothing to do with the writing or the recording of the demo. It was pretty much sort of like a hired second guitarist, and so that was kind of nice. Like I got to kind of chuck a few riffs in there, and yeah, it was nice because my old band had been leaning towards the metallic sort of side, but we were pretty much like a hardcore band. So it was nice to be able to play, proper metal riffs. And yeah, me and Ash gelled pretty well with the writing process. And I think it's like 5 songs. I think so. I think there's the
Yeah.
end song, the Primal Chaos, was kind of the intro riff was stolen from my previous band, which was quite nice. Thinking actually I can get to use this.
Awesome. After that, you came out with Animus in 2016, which also, I mean, that got you the best new band is on, the Metal Hammer Golden Gods Awards. What was that whole era like?
That was pretty wild because I don't think any of us were really sort of expecting to get any traction from it. I mean, with the demo and the EP, we were kind of the mentalities like, yeah, we might get a chance to play some shows, get to hang out, and we were sort of just enjoying each other's company. And I think we were all just happy to be playing the kind of music that we wanted to. So when we recorded Animus, it was like, it was really aggressive. It was really fast. I mean, I feel like it's pretty much a grindcore album when you listen to it compared to sort of a lot of the stuff we've recorded now. But
Right.
yeah, it was to be nominated was one thing with the Metal Hammer Golden Gods, and then like asked to go along. I mean, it was crazy. I remember we were kind of they told us like I think a week before that we had won it. Just they want to make sure that you show up, because it's an
Right.
event. They want the people winning to accept the awards. And I just remember thinking this is just really crazy because I remember buying Metal Hammer when I was younger, or if I
Hmm.
didn't buy it, I'd steal it. I remember stealing the CDs from all of the sort of rock magazines at
Yeah.
WH Smith's, sneaking them in your pocket and bolting out the doors. So, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
sorry, Metal Hammer, but yeah, that's what I did.
Hey, man, you
But
got to do
yeah,
what you got to do sometimes.
yeah, it was the way I checked out a lot of new bands. Metal Hammer, and we had Rock Sound magazine. There was Kerrang still, they're still around, and yeah, they're still putting out I'd say they're probably better now, really thinking about it. But yeah, back then it was the way to sort of check out new bands. You get your CD, and so yeah, we were at the Golden Gods Award, and I remember like Mike, our bass player, he played in my previous bands. We used to live together. We've known each other for over 15 years now, and I remember like we were just kind of looking at each other just in confusion because they'd be like Mastodon. We had to do this sort of like red carpet sort of media swarm sort of thing after we got the award, and there was that Chris Jericho who presented it. I'm not into wrestling, but apparently he's super famous, so that probably pretty wild. And then like Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath was kind of there, and we were wedged between Tony Iommi and the Mastodon dudes, and it was just like, what is going on? It was just
Yeah.
really, really strange. But yeah, it felt really yeah, kind of confusing, but also sort of reflecting back on it, it's pretty humbling. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds pretty surreal, really.
It was just super weird, man. Like we never expected to do. I mean, we recorded Animus in like we pretty much hibernated in the studio. We locked ourselves away. I don't think any of us saw daylight for 2 weeks, only to come out for cigarettes and smokes. And yeah, to go from just sort of playing a few dumb riffs to sort of being stood next to Tony Iommi being interviewed was pretty weird.
Oh man, I bet. What was it like meeting Jericho? I myself, I'm a wrestling fan, and of course, I'm familiar with Ozzy and everything. And he always just seemed like kind of an interesting guy.
Yeah, I remember him having a pretty intense energy presenting the awards and everything, and he had some sort of crazy jacket, I think, which like lit up his name on the back. But I didn't really
Yeah.
speak to him apart from him just kind of giving the awards. So no, sad to say I didn't really hang out or anything.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Busy night for everybody, I'm sure. A few years later, you came out with Samsara. How was it different than Animus?
I think the difference between Animus and Samsara was I think that was kind of more the point where me and Ash were collaborating sort of more evenly on sort of the writing process. It was definitely we wanted to flex a bit more on sort of the riffing. So there's so many riffs, man. Like we were I remember when we did Bloodstock because recently we pretty much been writing for the new record, which I guess we'll talk about later. But I remember recently before we played Bloodstock, we had to relearn some of the Samsara songs that I'd forgotten over lockdown, and yeah, I just couldn't believe like did we put that many riffs in? It just almost seemed stupid, really. But yeah, I think we had a few tours under our belt. You know, we'd been around Europe. I think no, maybe we hadn't done the US at that point. Maybe not. No, I don't think we had. I think we just kind of were gelling more. We were used to sort of playing sort of on stage together, and yeah, it was a definite more diverse record than Animus, but it still definitely felt like a nice progression from it, if you know what I mean. Like there was still
Right.
the kind of Venom Prison grindy bits. It was like fast. It had the sort of chuggy, slowed down sections, the breakdowns. The rest is heavy vocals. But there was kind of a slight more progressive element to it. I think we had sort of a few more sort of drawn out sections, and musically, it felt like a good step up from Animus, definitely. Yeah, yeah. It's one of those records. Like I enjoy listening back to it, but it's kind of one of those things where I think every musician kind of listens back to their older stuff and there's things you change about it. I'm kind of glad we kind of recorded it then and there and walked away from it because otherwise I think that record was, yeah, that was painful because I remember writing it would we'd be in between tours and like you'd have like 2 weeks at home before we went back out on tour and it was just incredibly patchy trying to get everything together, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like Ash would have a bunch of stuff, I'd have a bunch of stuff, and I remember going out. We took like a small interface on tour with us, and we were trying to kind of complete it whilst we were there. It was just tough, man. But we got there in the end.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a good payoff in my opinion. After Samsara, you got signed on to New Century Records. What was it like?
It was cool. So we were kind of on the lookout for a label. We've been talking to a few, and Mike Gitter from Century, he said he wanted to come along to our show in LA. We were, I think, it was our second US tour, and he was just a really cool guy, super nice, and he just kind of got us really what our background was because he came from the hardcore scene. He kind of, I mean, he's a bit older than us, but he was aware of all the bands, sort of the European hardcore bands and metal bands that we kind of grew up listening to, and yeah, he just had a on the same page, sort of looking back at the hardcore scene and seeing how that sort of shaped what we were doing, had that energy, that vibe. I think he just got us. So it was yeah, definitely cool to meet him for sure.
I get the impression with the kind of roster that New Century has, they obviously take care of their bands.
From what I can see, man, like I mean, we've only just started working, but yeah, I've heard nothing but good stuff about Century, and yeah, it's like I grew up listening to some of those metal bands that they signed, and yeah, it feels pretty wild to be on that same label, man. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Shortly after announcing being on New Century, it's announced you're going to be recording your third full length. what kind of direction do you guys plan on going as far as that album is concerned? Because I saw that Ash Gray was saying yesterday, actually, as far as the band going in a different direction. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little more about that.
Sure. Well, it's definitely still Venom Prison. It's definitely still heavy. I think we just really wanted to put forward a really good, diverse group of songs. So if you sort of listen back to, Animus and Samsara, the songs were quite busy sort of structurally. And I think what we wanted, those songs had great riffs, good hooks, but they weren't necessarily put together in the right order. There might be a riff which you pick out and be like, yeah, that's a sick riff, or that's a really good hook, a good catchy part. It would happen once and then it would disappear. With this album, we really wanted to think carefully about how we would structure things. We wanted them to be songs. We wanted it to be memorable. So that was kind of what we sort of set out doing. I mean, it's still, all those sort of original influences are still there. We've got the Carcass kind of groove, the riffs. We've got kind of the Cattle Decap sort of grind sort of styles.
Right.
But we all listen to a lot of different music. Like I've always been into sort of a lot of instrumental, sort of modern classical stuff, like Foria. Christ, I've gone completely blank now, but a lot more sort of instrumental stuff, really. So I kind of wanted to bring sort of an element of, a bit of that sort of ambience to it, really. I wanted it to have a good feel. I mean, I think we kind of spent a lot of time trying to set a mood, and you never really know where it's going to go. But I think sort of leading up, like I'd sort of set myself up with synths and sort of new. So like I remember digging out my dad's. My dad had a crazy keyboard collection, and we rebuilt his DX7, which is kind of known for all these wild 80s sounds. I picked up a Volca Keys, which is like a digital synthesizer. Got a MIDI keyboard and a bunch of virtual instruments. So we kind of wanted to sort of soundscape it all. Sort of tried to make a metal album that was cinematic, but not the same time, not make it symphonic black metal, if that makes sense.
Touring again. I know you guys recently did Bloodstock as kind of like, celebrating getting out of the whole pandemic. What was it like doing a live show after all that time?
It was weird. It was super weird. Like, one day you're at work and the next day you're in front of thousands of people with fire shooting out the stage. We went all out. It was our first show in nearly 2 years. We thought, why not go the full hog? And we got pyro. We kind of mixed up our set a bit. It was nice, man. I won't lie though, it was pretty overwhelming. I remember feeling good when I got there, kind of relaxed, got to warm up a bit, and then it just kind of backstage sort of dawned on us as we were setting up gear, and I don't know, just the energy, because everyone was sort of saying to me and saying to the rest of the band, "Oh, you guys must be so excited," and I was, yeah, I'm excited, but it was just like definitely anxiety inducing as well, because it's weird whenever you do festivals of that sort of magnitude. Usually it's kind of like in the middle of a tour, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So like you're usually pretty warmed up, you're pretty locked in as a group, you're kind of your muscle memory for the songs, you could play the songs on autopilot thinking about what you had for tea, and you don't really have to think about it. But with this, it was kind of the opposite. It was like relearning, what it's like to be on a stage. Even as far as like the smell. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it was quite a sensory overload. Yeah, just the smell of the smoke machine, the sort of the crowd, just the sort of hustle and bustle backstage, and just sort of, yeah, festivals are stressful, especially you can't run over. The sound's never particularly, you never really know what the sound's going to be like on stage. So that's kind of a bit anxiety inducing. But I mean, it was so cool, man. The set went really well. People got into it. We had a massive circle pit. We had fire. It was sick. Really enjoyed it, man. Really enjoyed
Oh
it.
yeah, sounds real sick. Once again, another surreal moment. It sounds like. I know you guys were supposed to be touring in October. Just saw that tour not really canceled, but postponed or pushed back. Yeah, could you give us some more details about that?
Yeah, we're under doctor's orders. Larissa is expecting a baby, and with the whole pandemic thing, there's been a lot of complications for people who get COVID, who are pregnant, sort of in the first and second term of pregnancy. So it's just not worth the risk, man. Like if you could guarantee, I mean, Larissa really wanted to do it. We all wanted to do it, but health comes first at the end of the day, man. Like she's expecting a child, so yeah.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, you got to take it easy, and it's just as it progresses, because I got a couple kids, so I understand that's safety and, thinking about the baby and everything. It's a lot more important. I assume it'll be next year. You guys plan on picking everything up?
Yeah, we got some things in the pipeline, so it's not over. It's only just to start with this new album out. It's just we all have lives, we all have families, and the band is it's a big part of our lives, but it is part of our lives. So, and this is the thing, man. Like I'm sure she'll probably talk about it more, but the number of you hear about dudes going on tour all the time with families back home, and I don't see why any of that should be different. She feels very strongly about continuing and still being, a musician and a mother, and I think that's very important to her. But I'm not going to talk for her, but
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sure I'm
no, I
sure she'll talk
understand.
about that stuff herself. Yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
yeah, I wish her all the best, man. Like I talk to her every day. She's healthy, but as far as like touring pregnant's one thing, but touring with the Delta variant and all the complications, I mean, you know, I'm sure no one wants to get into vaccinations at this point, but vaccinated or not vaccinated, people are catching it, man. And I've
yeah.
got colleagues who've had, you know, who are about to get the booster jab and who are on ventilators in hospital now, man. It's you just don't know. You just don't know what's around the corner. So it's only a short period of time. We'll get through this, and touring will be back up with our third album out. So it'll be sick.
Uh, Good deal, good deal. So, like you said, it's a balance. But it's nice to see that she still wants to be in the game, and because a lot of times once motherhood gets involved with your music career, a lot of times people kind of prioritize and kind of walk away from the music scene to be a mom and be a family and everything. So it's pretty cool that the band can be able to find that certain balance to that way be able to continue doing something that obviously you all love.
For sure, man. Yeah, yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Yeah.
Now, as far as touring, are you gonna go pretty much like you did with Animus, where it's just show after show after show after show, of that nature, or is it gonna be more or less just kind of like mini tours, like 1 month, and then take a break, and then maybe a small tour after that?
It's hard to say. I don't think there's a need to sort of kill yourself on the road anymore. I think people have kind of learnt that throughout the pandemic. I mean, there's really no need to sort of oversaturate things these days. Like I think people are learning that like putting something together and making good content is just as effective as sort of playing. What's the point in playing sort of 40 shows where you could play 20? Better production, better presence, in places that people can get to. I mean, we've done tours where everyone's done those tours where you play to some town as like a stopgap between the two main towns that you're trying to play. And I think bands are kind of wising up to that. I think there's working hard and there's working smart. And I think we
Right.
kind of we kind of plan on plan on touring, but it's gonna be a lot more focused. I just don't think you need to kill yourself on the road these days, man. It's does no one any good.
Right, exactly. Just burnout and everything else. Reminds me of something Henry Rollins said one time on one of his skits, where he was said basically like Metallica will play anywhere that there's electricity back in their time. And it just kind of made me think of that.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild, man. The burnout's real, man. We've been on the road a shit ton over the years, and there's definitely times where you can tell everyone looks exhausted. People are kind of when you get to the city, people kind of wander off and do their own thing. Everyone needs space from each other, and I just think you got to be smart about it for sure.
What kind of bands are you into nowadays?
Me personally,
Yeah.
I've been listening to what have I been listening to? I've been listening to Tyler Childers today. Funnily enough, I've been into a bit of Americana sort of stuff. I've been listening to Tyler Childers. Are you a fan of him, or can you stand that sort of music?
Actually, never heard them.
Oh,
What kind of
okay.
style does he do?
So he's a country musician. So
Oh, okay.
he's I mean, I think he's pretty well known in that sort of scene. Country music is kind of new to me. I got introduced to Cotter Wall during the Trivium and Power Trip tour. A couple of the guys from Power Trip were talking about Cotter Wall, and it's kind of Johnny Cash style sort of stuff, but I think kind of better. So I've been listening to Cotter Wall, Tyler Childers. There's a band I can't get enough of still. I keep coming back to them called 16 Horsepower. And that's kind of mid 90s Americana, but kind of very dark Americana.
Right.
So the instrumentation's kind of banjo, mandolin, electric guitar, drums, sort of squeeze box, a bit of synth as well. But he went on to do Woven Hand, which weirdly, for that kind of style, they released an album on Death Wish Records, which was Jake Bannon's from Converge record label, which was, I remember thinking, really strange that that came out on that. And other than that, I think just kind of a bunch of sort of instrumental stuff. Like I've been listening to, what have I been listening to? Oliver Arnolds. Have you heard of him?
No, actually, I haven't.
So it's kind of new classical, but he used to play in like a power violence band back in the day. So he used to play in like
Okay.
this hardcore band, and I'm trying to remember the name of his band, but it's really strange because he comes from that sort of hardcore punk and grind background. And now he's just doing sort of piano string arrangements and all sorts of stuff, which is pretty cool. Churches, have you heard of Churches?
No, I haven't heard of Churches.
Okay, Churches are from Glasgow, Scotland, and they're sort of like an electro pop band, but they are fucking awesome. You should definitely check those guys out. Um,
Um, Most definitely. You're giving me a list here.
and I suppose metal wise, I don't know, man. Like,
I was gonna ask, like, as far as like if you're still up to date as far as like the whole hardcore punk and grindcore scene.
well, I'm probably not, to be honest, but I mean, I can't really say I mean, I definitely, I mean, who did I have? Just looking at my history, I had a whole hour of Dying Fetus. I mean, that never gets, I mean, that must have been at the gym. um, yeah, man, I can't really say. I listen to a ton of metal, to be honest. I mean, if I'm talking about the flagship metal bands that changed things for me, between the Buried and Me, I'll always have time to kind of listen to sort of that that whole thing where I loved metal, but I always loved that they were kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because they would always have those kind of they'd have clean sections, they'd have progressive elements where you'd have a really fast part, it would slow down, and it would be sort of like a clean part. You'd have just sort of layers, and then it would go back into full chaos. But that between the Buried and Me album, Silent Circus, that's one of one of my go-tos. That's are you a
Yeah.
fan of Between the Buried and Me?
Again, not one I'm familiar with.
Oh, okay, man.
No,
I'll give you a list to check out. It'll keep you busy.
no doubt, no doubt, definitely. I was gonna say, as far as like hardcore punk and grindcore, like the two bands I've really been into lately in that type of scene is I know one of them is Escuela Grind. They're basically kind of at the top of the scene right now. And then there's also another band called Gel, which is an underground band from New Jersey. They were Gel, which is kind of a bit more of a punk kind of style, whereas Sick Shit was a lot more darker because they were Sick Shit before they were Gel, and Sick Shit is just so awesome. I'll have to send you a couple links on that. They were a lot darker and a lot more like hardcore and just evil sounding, and the vocalist is just like, oh my god, the scream that she has, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, I'll send you a link to check that out.
That's cool, man. I'm into that. Sounds good.
So, what other interests do you have, like outside of music?
Well, today I've been sorting my motorbike out. Like that was one thing. Another thing I got into over the pandemic. It's something I've always wanted to do is learn to ride a motorbike, and it's a lot different here in the UK. It's an absolute ball ache trying to get your bike license. It's not like it is in the States where you go do one course and then you're pretty much good to go. You can buy any power bike. It's not like that. Here you have to do like what you call a CBT, which is your compulsory basic training, and then you have to do your theory again. Even if you have a driver's license, you have to do a motorcycle theory test, and then you have to do a motorbike license, which is in two parts. So you have like a module one and a module two. So that's kind of been my last year. I've finally got my full bike license. So been getting
Nice.
into riding bikes. So that's been pretty fun. Um,
What kind of motorbikes do you have?
so at the moment, I have a Mutt. Mutt is this small builder based in Birmingham, which it was. I remember the first time we went. We were lucky enough to go to their headquarters. It was during when we went on tour with the band called Fit for an Autopsy. Tim, their guitarist,
Okay.
he's really into bikes, and he was like, "Oh, you should come check out Mutt Motorcycles," because we were playing a venue literally opposite the place, and it was he was showing me around, and he was showing me pictures of his Harleys, and also Wetzel, the bass player from Power Trip. He would always show me pictures of his Harley back home in Texas, and I think kind of just being around that, and definitely after seeing the bikes at the Mutt headquarters, it was like, yeah, one day I'm going to do this when I've got time. So yeah, at the moment I got a Mutt, which is kind of like a Triumph. Do you know much about motorbikes?
Not too much about it. Basically in America, everything is all about Harleys. So,
Yeah, man. I mean, it kind of is here too. Everyone worships Harley, especially in sort of the crossover into sort of the music scene. The cultures seem to go hand in hand. But the bike I've got, it's a Mutt. It's kind of styled like the sort of the British bikes, like the Triumphs and the Royal Enfields. So they're kind of a bit of a gentleman's sort of vintage bike, but kind of with a bit of a modern grunt to it. So I mean, the bike I have, it's only a small bike. It's a beginner bike, but I've literally just spent this afternoon cleaning it, ready to put it up for sale, so I can buy probably a Harley.
upgrade.
Yeah, man.
Are you into like any what kind of movies or TV series are you into? What kind of movies or TV series are you into?
My favorite TV series, I think I've always been kind of selective, really. I'm not a huge movie guy, but I suppose the TV show that changed things for me. Do you remember 6 Feet Under, that old
Oh,
HBO
yes, I
series?
did.
That show changed everything for me. Like I had no idea a TV series could be so powerful. I've even got like a 6 Feet Under theme tattoo. I've got like a funeral director raven.
Oh, nice.
with a quote from that. So that was a big show for me. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I'm a big Seinfeld fan. Love that. Kirby Enthusiasm. I'm into my sort of American comedies, but also, have you heard of Alan Partridge? I don't know if that made it across
Yes,
your grid.
yes, I have actually.
Okay, yeah, I'm a big Partridge fan. Yeah, anything Steve Coogan, pretty much.
It's pretty interesting actually, like as far as like kind of being into the highbrow American humor. Because a lot of people I talk to, they're like really into horror movies and like Renaissance types of media. It's pretty interesting actually. I know one good show that kind of falls along those lines too is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I always thought that was like a really good show, kind of like in the same style as like the shows that you mentioned.
Yeah, something about that show seems to appeal to everyone. I think everyone that's ever done bar work or some kind of hospitality, that seems to be their favorite show.
Kind of like The Office, where like those type of people and those type of occupations, it kind of reaches out to them.
Yeah, man. Have you seen the British one too, though?
No, I haven't. I didn't know there was a
Okay.
British version.
Yeah, man. I mean the guy Ricky Gervais who did the British version first. He produced the American one too. But I kind of I love the British version, but I think the American one's actually better.
Oh, I know one British show that I really got into some years back. It was called Hard Sun. I don't know if
Okay.
you heard of that one.
No, no, I've not heard of that.
Um,
Hard Sun or like sun as in like offspring. Like
no, sun, as in the sun in the sky, Ra, all
okay.
that. But yeah, it was basically kind of like how a couple agents found out that the sun was basically expanding, getting ready to blow up, and it was going to happen within like I don't know, a couple weeks or something like that. And so they were like trying to, get the information out, and like the government's trying to keep them from doing it. I think it was like a one season type of series, but I thought it was really good. It's on Hulu, I believe.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm surprised I'd never even heard of that, man. Yeah, check it out. There's too much choice. That's the problem now. Like there's Netflix, there's Amazon Prime. Man, there's just too much. Like if I turn Netflix on, I just can't make a decision. I just end up going back to the same shit I've watched always, and then you get into an argument with your partner about what you want to watch, and yeah, it's just stick to what you know, man.
Oh yeah, come on, man, let's try Vikings.
Oh shit, yeah, I've heard that's good too, actually.
Oh yeah, Viking. My wife and I actually finally started getting into that, so we're still in. I think we're into just beginning the second season actually. If you're into motorbikes, actually, a show that you would probably like would be Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've definitely I've seen a little bit of it. Yeah, it's kind of wild. Like they seem to have no real consequence for anything they do. They'll just go like shoot up a meth lab and then like no one gets caught and there's no investigation and yeah, it's yeah pretty wild.
Yeah, a lot of crooked shit. Well, and the thing about that show, which it's very few shows that have this effect, is it's like my wife and I will like start watching it, and all of a sudden it's 8 hours later, and it's like 5 in the morning.
Oh, really? Shit.
Yeah, it's one
Oh,
of those
must
kind
be
of
good
shows.
then.
It's just it's a cliffhanger. There's so much stuff going on all the time, and it's like you have to like, oh my god, okay, just one more. I have to see what happens next.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll stick with it then. Maybe I'll see where it goes.
Yeah, just make sure you got to start from the start.
Oh, okay. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense, right?
Right, exactly.